Now, we've already seen a deciduous azalea, and we know that they get very, very large. And in fact, what most people don't know is that most azaleas are deciduous, upright, and have that natural vase-shaped habit of growth. We know a lot of the evergreen ones, and we think those are the most common, but really those are the most common ornamentals. The most common species of azaleas are deciduous. Now, we've got another situation where we've had a very, very mature plant that's been overtopped by dense, heavy shade of deciduous trees. And this plant has kind of leaned out and over trying to get to the sun, and a bunch of dead wood and some very non-vigorous wood has developed, and this whole branch, which at the base is about 2 inches in diameter, has died. So we're going to go back into the base of this plant, take out the oldest dead wood, and accentuate these beautiful new vigorous young shoots, make room for them. These will be, again, much more vigorous, much more interesting, much more resistant to the little oyster scale that we have developing on some of these older ones. Now, in a dense plant like this, it may take you a second to get down to the bottom and really find out where, how low you can go to make that really, really good cut. And I'm way down at the bottom here, but I'm starting to make my cut. We've got a little action with the saw binding. I don't want to pull on it. I want to just kind of leave it like it is. I don't want to put any pressure on it because the saw will bind. And the saw is binding. There I go. I've got less pressure. And now it should be already off. So we just had that little nub on there that decided to come off. Now that I'm down here, well, I can see we've got some more problems with some dead wood here, right here. And that branch is, well, that branch is alive, so I'm going to leave that. How rotten that branch was, it just kind of snapped off. Take off that little stub of dead wood, you know, and we've got a real good number of dead stubs in here, but I can move into here. And again, sometimes they're so old and broken, and brittle rather, that they just kind of pop right off and really don't even need to be pruned. I've got this dead branch here, trace it back to where it's alive. Actually, I got to go a little further on that. I'm going to move myself around a little bit. Move to the back of the plant. I've got a nice vigorous growth here, but right below that is where we're dead. So I'm going to make this cut, and actually the best angle here is coming from the bottom up. So I'll take that off and tweeze it out. You know you've done a good job if the branch you pruned off doesn't have a leaf on it. Well, the idea here is that we want to start identifying the wood that's dead and then trace that wood back down until we find living wood. And so that way you really only have to prune one branch, one time, to get all the dead wood. We've traced this one back all the way into this angle right here. So I'm going to very carefully make that cut. I don't want to cut into the live wood. You know, it's almost like a surgical type of operation. But it's not surgery. Surgery is practiced on animals, including humans, and this is pruning. And pruning is the correct term to describe the removal of plant parts from a plant. Trimming is something you get done to your hair. Shaping is something, well, you get that done too. But the correct term that we like to use is pruning. We've got another dead branch that we can come back to here, to a nice live shoot. Making thinning cuts as we go. We really don't want to make any heading cuts on this one. Another thinning cut in here, removing as much dead wood as possible every time we cut. Got some there. And I don't know if we got a close-up of the oyster scale on this plant, but perhaps because the plant is in heavy shade and it's a little stressed, we have these very small white patches. They're about maybe a 1/16 inch in diameter. And we can take them to the extension lab and get a correct diagnosis, but to the naked eye, they do look like oyster scale. And I suspect that if we do some canopy pruning and get some more light back on these Piedmont azaleas, they'll start to be vigorous again, and most of that oyster scale will begin to fade away. A vigorous plant, a healthy and vigorous plant, is the best bet against insect and disease pathogens. And that's sort of a mantra that you should always remember. Fight insects with plant vigor, not necessarily with pesticides. Now, we've done a pretty good job of getting out the dead wood on this old, overgrown Piedmont azalea. But you know what? I'm going to take a big move right here. I'm going to take these very, very large, there's one stem actually, it looks like two when it comes out, but I'm going to take this very, very large stem out all the way at the base. And again, you can see, come down in here, and this plant has made such an effort to grow out into the sun, it's become really unbalanced and actually has begun to pull itself out of the ground. And the root mass is very, very loose. So by doing this, taking this big stem off, really going to help to throw the weight balance back into the center of the plant. We can finish our canopy pruning at a later time and reinvigorate this plant. And it'll make new roots as it gets new stems and begin to firm itself up in the ground. We're almost through. It's kind of a hard angle. We don't want to put any pressure on it because the saw will bind. It's doing there. You just want to try to, don't want to put any pressure on it. Gentlemen. Well, let's get that out of the way. Thank you. And we can finish up that last little part of the cut. You can see where we cut in, and actually part of this has some rot that might be going down into the center of the plant. But again, I suspect that if we take the right steps with canopy pruning, open this back up to sun, the pruning we've just done will reinvigorate the plant. We've also removed a lot of the oyster scale, so we might not get so much reinfestation. But I believe this Piedmont azalea is going to respond very, very vigorously.